and complaining. Okay? Their motto is don't get mad, get even. Okay? Is that you? Do you tend to be passive aggressive, a sprayer, letting your anger out here and there, a little comment, a little sarcasm, a little gossip, like that. The sprayer also needs to realize that it's okay to express anger. Do it appropriately and learn how to, again, be more assertive. This is what I really wanted. This is what you did to offend me. All of these ways are really unhealthy ways of expressing our anger. Whether you're the spewer, you blow up. The stewer, the one that packs it all down. Or the sprayer, just passive aggressive, getting back at people. Okay? So, in a moment I'm going to get into a part in the Old Testament that gives us an example of an angry man. Somebody that anger got a hold of his life, bitterness, and it brought him down a path that, believe me, you don't want to go there. Now, in the book of Ephesians, it says, and do not give the devil a foothold or an opportunity. It mentions that word foothold in the NIV. In other words, when we hold on to anger and we hold it on and on and on and we don't deal with it, the Bible's telling us that gives the devil an opportunity to get into your life and to begin messing with your mind, with your emotions, and using you to infect others. Now, what is a foothold? Anybody that's ever tried to climb a mountain or something like that knows what a foothold is. Because if they want to move up that mountain, what do? They look for little cracks and crevices that they can get their foot into so they can keep moving up the mountain. If you can't get a foothold, you can't move. When we stay angry, when we get bitter, it opens up a door for the devil to have a foothold in your life and to begin to take territory. We have to be careful. In Hebrews 12:15, it talks about a root of bitterness. Listen to what it says. See to it that no one comes short of the grace of God, that no root of bitterness springing up cause trouble, and by it defile many. You see, once that root of bitterness gets in there, Satan can use you to begin to infect a lot of people around you. Have you noticed that anger gets passed on? Maybe a husband's at work and the boss yells at him, and then it messes up his day. He can't respond to the boss. Right? So what does he do? He goes home, his wife greets him, hi honey, and he's, Oh, he got angry at the wife. And then the wife is upset because of her husband, and she goes, yells at the kids about something, at her son, and the son goes and hits his sister, and the sister goes and kicks the dog. So, you gotta stop that anger before it spreads all over the place. Now, so this root of bitterness. Now, in California, I have a lawn there. I used to mow my lawn every day, or not every day, every week. And they had this certain grass that's called crabgrass, right? And this crabgrass, what it does is it grows up and it starts to take over your lawn. And what you have to do is you have to go and you have to pull it up out of there. Well, many times you mow the lawn and I'd pull this crabgrass up, but if I didn't pull it up from the root, it would be there next week. It's the same way with a root of bitterness. If we don't take care of it, if we don't nip it at the bud and pull it out by the roots, it's going to stay there. For instance, maybe somebody offended you many years ago, right? Years have gone by and you figure, okay, I'm over that. But then you see that person and all of a sudden all those feelings and the anger and everything comes right back. What does that mean? That means you never pulled it out. You never dealt with it at the root. It's still there. If there's a bitter root, there's going to be bitter fruit. Okay? You can't hide bitterness for very long before it starts coming out. In what you say, you start to gossip, you start to slander that other person. You can even become very angry, a rage. We have to deal with anger and bitterness and pull it out at the roots. Now, we're going to look now at this life of this man, the devastating effects of uncontrolled anger and the terrible path it can take us on. We're looking at the life of Saul. King Saul, the first king of Israel. Now let me set this up for you. What has gone on here is young David, we all know David and Goliath, right? Young David has gone out there. Goliath was taunting the people of Israel. He was putting down, the God of Israel. And everybody was afraid of this giant. Well, David couldn't take it anymore. And, in the power of the Lord, he went out and he got his little slingshot. And sure enough, he killed that giant, cut off his head, and everybody was celebrating. Israel had pride once again as a nation. Now, we're going to pick it up from there and see what happened. Verse 5, so David went out wherever Saul sent him, and he prospered. And Saul set him over the men of war. And it was pleasing in the sight of all the people and also in the sight of Saul's servants. It happened as they were coming, when David returned from killing the Philistine, that the women came out of all the cities of Israel, singing and dancing to meet King Saul, with tambourines and joy, with musical instruments. The women sang as they played, and they said, Saul has slain his thousands, and David his 10,000s. Verse 8. Then Saul became what? Very angry. For this saying displeased him. And he said, they have ascribed to David 10,000s, but to me they've ascribed thousands. Now what more can he have but the kingdom? Saul looked at David with suspicion from that day on. You see, jealousy often turns to anger. If you're jealous, be very careful. Don't let it turn into anger. Now, David was a good guy. He loved the Lord. He had nothing in mind. He would faithfully serve the king. He would never go against the king. But that's what anger does to you. It starts to harden your heart. It starts to make you look at other people with suspicion. You're not thinking right. Okay? It goes from jealousy to anger. Now let's go on. Anger, if you hold on to it, can give Satan a foothold in your life. That's that foothold we were talking about. And I think we have an example of it here. In verse 10 it says, and now it came about the next day that an evil spirit from God came mightily upon Saul, and he raved in the midst of his house. Now, let me make a note here. It says an evil spirit from God. Now, what has happened here is that Saul has given himself over so completely to anger, to bitterness, to jealousy, and he has also departed from the Lord. As a result of that, the Lord allows this evil spirit to go ahead and taunt Saul. But Saul is the one that opened it up. It's the same with us. If we carry on in that way, with anger, ultimately we can open ourselves up to Satan's influence. Okay, let's go on. Now, so it says he raved in the midst of his house. Now, when he's raving, he's probably just walking back and forth. He's just thinking, this thing is playing in his mind over and over. He's going to get my kingdom. He's going to take my kingdom, you know. He's just going nuts with this. And what does he do? But first off, David has what in his hand? A harp. He's playing music. He's trying to comfort Saul. What's in Saul's hand? A spear. You got to be careful with angry people. They always have a spear in their hand ready to poke anybody around them. Look at verse 11. It said, Saul hurled the spear, for he thought, I will pin David to the wall. But David escaped from his presence twice. Apparently this happened twice. Now Saul was afraid of David, for the Lord was with him, but he departed from Saul. You see, once you open yourself up to anger like this, the devil comes in and it's playing in your mind over and over like an instant replay. And you're not thinking properly anymore. It's just starting to consume your life. Perhaps some of you have experienced that before. You can't even sleep at night. It's just going back, and it's going back and forth. You have to be careful. You need the Lord involved to surrender you from that. Let's go on. So from a foothold, we see that anger can lead to manipulation. Now this blows me away. It blows my mind that Saul is willing to go to these depths. But listen to what happened. It said, now Michal, Saul's daughter, loved David. And when they told Saul, the thing was agreeable to him. Saul thought, I'll give her to him that she may become a snare or a trap to him, and that the hand of the Philistines may be against him. Therefore Saul said to David for a second time, you may be my son-in-law. Now, this is a guy that just threw a spear at you twice trying to kill you, and now he's saying, hey, you can be my son-in-law. Verse 22, then Saul commanded his servants, speak to David secretly, saying, behold, the king delights in you, and all the servants love you. Now therefore become the king's son-in-law. Boy, what a lie. What's scary here is that because of his state of mind, anger can drive you out of your mind. He's not making right decisions. He's not thinking right. It hardens his heart. He's even willing to sacrifice his daughter. I'll just use her to manipulate him. God forbid that we would ever go to those depths, to manipulate our own children and use our own children in that way. But that's what anger and jealousy and bitterness can do to you. Be very careful. Okay? We'll go on. Anger can break relationships. It can tear relationships apart. What's going to happen here is Jonathan, his son, he wants to reason with him. He wants to reason with his dad. Dad, David is a good man. What are you doing? But you know what? You can't reason with an angry man. It's very difficult. They're not in the right mind. Verse 30, then Saul's anger burned against Jonathan, and he said to him, you son of a perverse, rebellious woman. That sounds like some sort of Jewish curse to me. Do I not know that you are choosing the son of Jesse to your own shame, and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on the earth, neither you nor your kingdom will be established. Therefore now send and bring him to me, for he surely must die. I mean, Saul is going out of his mind, wanting to kill poor David. David has done nothing wrong to him. He is driven by his anger. Now look at this. Listen to what Jonathan says. Jonathan answered Saul his father and said to him, why should he be put to death? What has he done? Then Saul hurled his spear at him to strike him down. So Jonathan knew that his father had decided to put David to death. Can you imagine that? His anger has driven him to the point that if his son didn't agree with him to be an enemy against David, he was willing to kill his own son. You got to be careful with angry people. They can hurl things at you. You know, today, we don't throw spears at each other, do we? Not so much. But we can spear you with words. Cutting words that go in and offend and cut down people. Sarcasms. We have to be very careful with these things. Those, you heard that thing, sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. That's not true.